Hello and welcome! If you are new around here, I'm Eva and I'm a digital and mixed media artist. In today's video, I'm going to focus on beginners in digital painting and I will be using the Procreate app. So let's dive in right away. So as you can see, there is not much space on this canvas, so let me make some space. I will hide this part of the illustration by going to the layers and clicking on the tick icon here on the side. Now I will create a new layer by clicking on the plus sign and then I can paint on this layer so I have space here. And I will talk more about layers later on. So for now, let's just go to brushes and you can find all the brushes in the brush icon, and I have a lot of my own sets, but first of all let's talk about the basics. So I will go to the airbrushing folder and from there I will select the hard brush and I will take one of the colors here. So some kind of just green color, and I activated the color picker by tapping on this icon and using the pencil. You might have it set up differently, maybe just tapping the canvas with one finger and holding it. So I will just create a circle with this brush, and as you can see, the brush has very hard edge and I'm using full pen pressure. Then I will go to the brushes again and then I will choose the soft brush. And as you can see, this brush has a very soft edge. So you can mostly distinguish brushes with hard edge and soft edge. I mostly use the hard edge brushes because you can clearly design and draw the shapes that you want to create, and you can't control the shapes well with the soft edge shape brush. And if you see the texture on these brushes, this is just created with my watercolor paper template. So this normally doesn't come with that brush that I just showed you. Alright, so let's move on. I can delete this layer by swiping to the left and delete the layer. Then I can create a new layer, and let me talk about pen pressure. So I will go to one of the hard edge brushes before moving on to more fun brushes with more textures and different edges. So let's take, doesn't really matter, maybe just this basic hard brush. So if we talk about pen pressure, there are brushes that change opacity with pen pressure. So if I'm pressing lightly, the brush is very soft. When I press harder, the brush became more opaque, and again softer and harder. So you can play around with the opacity and pen pressure, or pencil pressure in this case, right? Now, if you want to delete this part of the illustration, you can again just delete the layer, or you can tap with two fingers and go back. Now, if we go to the inking folder, we can take a basic brush, for example this syrup, and here you can see with soft pressure versus hard pressure, the brush changes its size. We can make the brush bigger here with the slider on the top left. And just to compare, going back to the airbrushing, this brush doesn't change the size when you are using different pressure. So try to compare brushes that you have based on the size that is changing when you're using different pen pressure or the opacity. So I will just go back and I will select one of my brushes from the watercolor set. I will select the brush number 26 and I will make the brush bigger and I will vary the pen pressure. So as you can see, with this brush, when I use different pen pressure, the brush also changes the opacity as well as the size. So as you can imagine, there are many different brushes in all the brush sets that you can find, combining different opacity as well as the size. So now I will go to the brush number, let me see, number 17. And I will make it a little bit bigger so you can see it better. And I will start with a gentle touch and build up the color. And I am varying the pressure and I am blending the colors just with lifting the pen, not fully, just using less pressure and then more pressure when I want to have more color. So there is this blending built-in within the brush. But what I want to mention here is the pressure again. So try to start light with any brush that you are using, begin with a gentle touch, and try to use the brushes with a different pencil pressure. Test out the brushes by building up the marks that you do and let the colors build gradually. What you can also do is to create new layers. So let's create a new layer. And you can build up the colors by using more layers and see how the brushes blend together when you use different layers. As you can see, they don't blend the same way. So you can add depth by layering colors, which in this case we use the same color. So let me use a different color, maybe blue, and then you can see the difference better. So you can see how the colors maybe look on top of each other when you use different layers. So when you create more layers, you can add depth to your illustration and create more dynamic painting. So you can also adjust the opacity of the layer by clicking on the N sign, which is a normal blending mode, and you can reduce the opacity of the layer and create this translucent look of the watercolors. Now I can delete this layer, create a new one, and you can also play with the slider of the opacity of the brushes here on the left side. And then you can achieve similar results. So you can play with the opacity by building up the colors like this. Now let's take a different brush just for fun. So I will remove these marks which we did before. Make sure I am on the correct layer, and this time I can maybe take this brush number 35. I will select maybe the blue as we had before, or maybe darker blue. And let's talk about blending colors, because you can blend colors by using the opacity on the sliders or on the layers, as I mentioned, but you can also use the color picker and blend colors by using the smudge tool. So first of all, let me just zoom in a little bit, make the brush bigger so you can see it better. And I will create marks here on the left side and building up the color using different pressure, so softer on the right side and more on the left side. And when you lift the pencil and make more marks, they blend together in a way that the colors are darker. So right now I am building more saturation, or basically more value here on the left side. So it's darker, as you can see. And then I can take the lighter blue and put it on the right side. And as you can see, the colors are blending differently with this brush. So what I can do now, I can go to the smudge tool and you can select different brushes for your smudging, so for your blending colors. So in this case, I can select this soft blending brush because it will blend the colors more evenly. I need to make the brush a little bit bigger, and with the soft pressure, I can blend the colors. And you can blend more from left to right and right to left, or you can just tap on the canvas and try to blend colors in that way when you are using the smudge tool. When you push from the side, it will blend the colors from the color which is close to it. So as you can see, there is white there, so we will push white towards the color. Here you can push this darker color and smudge in that way. So I will make this a little bit smaller, and I will show you a different brush. So let's take number 33, and I will show you blending the colors in that way. So here we have more opacity on this brush. And then I will go to color, and I will select some lighter green, maybe also warmer. So let's see, maybe something like this. And then I can paint on the right side. And as you can see, with lower pressure, I can blend the colors here without the smudge tool, and I can use the color picker to add a third color in there. And then I can smudge them together. And we have this smooth gradient. But what it creates here is this smooth gradient also on the sides. So if you prefer more crunchy gradients or blending, you can use blenders or smudge brushes with those kind of features. So for example, I can take brush number 40, which has that kind of feature, and I can create more texture when blending. And I can make the brush bigger. And it creates this watercolor effect there. And I can use the brush more from the top and just touching the canvas, or you can just move it from side to side and see what effects you like. So now let me just create more color combinations and talk to you in a second. So try to create different colors next to each other and explore how different colors interact and merge and how they look together on your canvas, and basically which color combinations you like the most. And you can explore different blending techniques. What you can also do is find different splatters and kind of create a realistic look of water brushes. So you can add realism with splatters and random marks, and you can use these brushes to add realistic watercolor touches. So for example, here I can add random watercolor splatters just on the side. This is too light, so you don't see it well. So let me take a little bit darker color. So something like this. I can use also green. So you can just add these type of splatters, and they're very subtle. And you can also use different brushes which are a little bit more opaque. For example, something like this, the brush number 6. And I can add more splatters here on the side, and I can just create bigger and smaller splatters. So you can add splatters on the side of your paintings to add this nice realism and kind of realistic touch to your digital illustration. You can also experiment with washes for the background to create even more realistic look. So I can make these marks a little bit smaller. Or let me actually hide them so we have more space. I will create a new layer. And when I mention the washes, you can always find brushes which are more subtle. So in my brush set, I have this soft background texture brush. So here I can use maybe blue color so you can still see it. I can make the brush a little bit bigger and create this soft background texture. With the softer background texture, you can create even softer marks. So as I mentioned, one of the things is to experiment with washes for the background, adding the water effect for the background of your paintings, or the splatters that you can add to have this traditional crispy feel in your painting. Other thing is, let me zoom in so you can see it a little bit better. You can create different textures on top of your artwork. So as you can see here in my watercolor paper template, I have textures on top of the artwork. So if I disable the layer, you can see there is less texture, and now you can have this more traditional watercolor paper look. So other thing you can experiment with is the texture background. So here in my template, I also implemented the watercolor paper texture for the background, and the right canvas texture can transform your painting into more traditional feel. So you can choose textures that resemble the real watercolor paper, which I went for here. And this has also impact on the brushes. So you can observe how the brushes that you use behave differently on various textures and canvases. And now when we have the layers open, let's talk about the layer management. Because you can work on one layer or many layers. There is no rule to that. And when you use more layers, you have more flexibility to change things on your artwork or in your sketchbook spread. So if I zoom out, I can hide what we just sketched, and I can uncover the landscape that I was painting here. So I'll collapse the other layers, and let me show you how I have it organized in this artwork. So for example, for the landscape that I was painting here, I created the landscape background on one layer, then I added the details on a separate layer, and then I added more details and lines on top of it. So as I mentioned, layers give you flexibility and offer the freedom to experiment with the composition, color schemes, and basically the elements which you are not sure if you want to keep and you just want to test it out. So I always suggest that you try it on a separate layer, not on the same layer. And what you can do also with the watercolor brushes or other digital brushes, you can try the approach of traditional methods. So you can experiment with dry on wet or wet on wet techniques. And the digital advantages of the digital medium or the digital sketchbooks offer endless possibilities without material waste. So I can test out many things and try out things which I would like without actually creating lots of empty papers and maybe tossing them to the trash can and just basically creating a lot of material waste. But then I can keep practicing, and the regular practice will enhance my understanding of digital methods and digital watercolor techniques or whatever I want to create. So I can hide the colors that I have here, and I can recreate one of the leaves here so you can see how I would use this technique. And while I'll do that, I can summarize what we talked about. So my personal tips would be starting simple, focusing on the basic shapes and colors to avoid feeling overwhelmed. You can focus on hard edges versus soft edges with blending, because the soft edges can be those parts that you blend together. You can, for example, start painting leaves like I'm doing here, or simple flowers or other objects before diving into fully detailed paintings. So you can embrace the experimentation, take advantage of digital undo features, and test different settings and strokes. so you can watch and learn. And I think online tutorials are invaluable. So you can watch tutorials or classes, and they provide specific tips and tricks of digital watercolor and other digital painting techniques. And if you don't know yet, I have a variety of classes which you can choose from if you are interested in learning more. And from my experience, getting comfortable with digital painting and brushes in Procreate is about practice and familiarity. Each brush set has its unique quirks, so try to invest time in understanding these nuances and remember that the journey of mastering digital painting is as rewarding as the final artwork. So thank you so much again for being here, and I wish you a happy painting! So, talk to you in the next video. Bye!